Okay, what we're doing today is we're working on the Vette. We're having problems with it passing emissions. I keep getting an EGR code and a knock sensor code, and when you go to your Haynes manual, it describes some symptoms that I have. It's not passing emissions, and it's not getting enough vacuum to the EGR to make it operate properly. So what this is this is the plenum right here, and I have a coat hanger hanging out of one of the ports. That port right there is on the passenger side, and I'll show you where we're at under the hood. Okay, we had to take the plenum off because we have a clogged port on the plenum, and the port I'm talking about is this one right here in the middle of your screen. It's the one with the black soot around it. That one right there. If you take your compressed air, take off your EGR valve, blow your compressed air through here, it'll blow a little cloud up through that square hole. And we know it's flowing because it's got plenty of compressed air coming out of it once you hit it with the compressed air. The one on the other side is the same. Actually, it's cleaner. So what you have to do is you have to pull the plenum off. The EGR port going to the plenum itself is what's clogged up. That's what we're doing over here. Okay, look how much soot we've got out of this so far. And I've only just begun cleaning it. This clothes hanger, you push it in there as hard as you can, and you wiggle it around and scrape as much as you can out of it. There's also 2 holes right on the inside of the plenum there. See those holes back there? There's a little aluminum right here because I've been scraping so much, but who cares? I'm going to hit it with compressed air when I'm done with it anyway. So we're just making sure those ports are clean. So that's what we got this going on here. I'm going to have to put a new throttle body gasket on it and another EGR valve gasket. Look at all this crap that's come out so far. Watch what happens when I dump out more from this plenum. Look how much more came out. So I'm going to take a break right now, but I'm going to continue to clean on this. But this seems like it may be what my problem is. Bunch of carbon in this hole, and that hole goes to these 2 holes in there. That one's a better view. That was the other one. And you got to jam a coat hanger in there to get all this carbon out. And I'm going to keep on going because there's plenty more in there, and that may be what's giving me a emissions failing problem. Plus it throws an EGR code, and plus it throws a knock sensor code. This is how much I got out of that port on this plenum. That's a lot of carbon buildup. I think that was plugging up the EGR valve because it wasn't sucking enough vacuum to operate it properly. This port right here goes up into these 2. This one on this side goes into this big V in the middle. But this one goes into 2 holes right on this side of the throttle body. As long as you run that hanger in there, I did it 4 times, and I could do it one more time, but I got enough of it out to make sure that the passage is flowing now, because I made sure I could see the hanger up here. Even when I jammed it in this hole, I made sure I could see the hanger back here. So we know that that port, at least it's flowing now. So we're going to go ahead and run it like that. I'm going back together with it now, and I'll bring you up to speed once I get it back together. Okay, it's time to fire it up to see what we got going here. We just got done putting this plenum back on. This part right there with the ribs on top of the runners there. And you just got to make sure you check everything. I check everything 12 times just to make sure I got it back together. I believe I got everything back together the way it's supposed to be. So we're going to go ahead and start it up and see what happens. Okay, she's running. We got her back together like it's supposed to be so far. So it's running. I did notice the check engine light. And that may be just because all the EGR system has to get filled up with the proper vacuum. Into this sensor right here, like it's supposed to go. Into this sensor right here. Maybe it has to get enough vacuum in there to make that go off, make the check engine light go off. But it's running, which is no big deal because it was running before I did this to it. Hopefully that port that I cleaned out will make the EGR system function properly compared to the way it was before I cleaned it. I can't really tell unless I take it to the emissions test place. So that's the next step, is take it to the emissions test center and get the emissions test done. That's the only way I can tell if it's able to pass emissions now or not. But it looks like we got it back together right. So I guess next step is to go to the emissions test center. Sounds like it's idling properly. Okay, I went ahead and shut the car off, and I cleared the code, as in removed the negative cable for 8 seconds. I usually do it for 20 or more. And now the check engine light has stayed off, or didn't come on this last time that I started it. So it may have had to pump enough vacuum into that EGR vacuum solenoid to make it read that it has enough vacuum in it. So maybe that's why the check engine light's off. But it's idling nice. and hopefully we got the problem taken care of. We won't be able to tell until we go to the emissions test place. But as of now, the check engine light is off, and that's a good sign. So we have to go test it now. We were on our way to the emissions place today because we were going to go get a test on this car. And when I jumped in the car, what had happened was the check engine light code came on. It'll probably stay off now because I've already driven it for a little bit. But I'm not going to take it to test it until I get that check engine light to go off completely and not come on at all, because I don't feel like paying the emissions test fee and it continues to fail. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can replace a part that the emissions technician, he told me to replace a part that may be giving me a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can do that. And then I'll go after getting a test. After I take it to him to make sure it's going to pass, then I'll go ahead and get a test after that. But we're not as far as I was hoping we'd be by now. So, in fact, we can go ahead and start this up, and I'll watch the check engine light will stay off. See? It's not even on now. But I don't even want it coming on when I start up. So we got to replace one more part. We got to do the same thing we did. Pull the plenum off, get that stupid EGR valve out of there that's hard as heck to get to. Replace the EGR valve, and then just we'll go from there, because we've already done everything else. We've cleaned the port. You see it's running now. Runs beautiful. I can't believe what's still giving me a problem, but we'll go ahead and take care of that. We'll put a new EGR valve in it, and hopefully that'll make it pass emissions. All right, peace out. I don't know if you can see, but the check engine light has come back on. And I'm on my way back home from my test drive. So whatever we did not fix the problem. Feels like it should have, but it didn't. So back to the drawing board.